Liam Hart had everything people were taught to want before they were old enough to question it. Money, looks, status, and a last name that opened doors before he even knocked. His face smiled from business magazines, praising him as a young self-made visionary. Behind the polished interviews, though, he was bored in a way success never cured. Parties blurred together, women came and went, and nothing seemed to impress him. He treated life like a game that only he could win, raising the stakes whenever he felt empty. The more he gained, the less anything felt real or serious anymore. It was only a matter of time before his boredom turned into something cruel. On a cold Friday night, Liam hosted a private party at an exclusive downtown lounge. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter bounced off marble, and expensive perfume filled the air. His closest circle of rich friends lounged around a corner booth, half drunk and restless. They were all used to getting what they wanted, and tonight, they wanted entertainment. The conversation drifted from cars and deals to relationships and marriage. One friend joked that Liam would never settle down unless he could turn it into a bet. Liam smirked, leaning back as if the idea didn't bother him at all. "Marriage is just a contract," he said. "I could marry anyone and still come out on top." Another friend, Miles, raised an eyebrow with a sly grin. "Anyone," he repeated, swirling his drink slowly in his hand. "What if you didn't get to choose some model or socialite this time?" he teased. Liam's pride bristled at the implication that there was anything he wouldn't dare. "You think I'm scared?" Liam shot back, his tone light but edged with challenge. "Name the terms and I'll sign them," he added, more for the crowd than for himself. A few people leaned in, sensing a story they'd repeat for months. The air around the table thickened with the kind of excitement born of arrogance. Miles nodded toward the frosted windows facing the street below. "Fine," he said. "You always say money and power can fix anything, right? Then prove it by marrying someone with absolutely nothing," he continued calmly. "Pick a beggar off the street. Marry her. Make her your wife for real." The table exploded with disbelief and laughter, some shocked, some thrilled. "That's insane," one woman gasped, though she could not stop smiling. Liam's jaw tightened, his ego refusing to back away from the dare. "Is that all?" he said. "You want a show? I'll give you one." Another friend tried to backpedal, suddenly uneasy. "Come on, Liam, we're just joking around," he said, raising his hands. But the idea had already rooted itself in Liam's restless mind. He was used to proving people wrong and turning outrage into spectacle. "If you're serious," Miles said carefully, "we'll make it official. 6 months of marriage, documented, public, no cheating the story," he added. "In return, we donate a huge sum to any charity you choose." Liam paused, tasting the mix of challenge and opportunity. Money for charity made the whole thing sound almost noble. That detail eased several watching faces, letting them pretend it was harmless. Liam knew the media would devour a shock marriage storyline. He imagined headlines, interviews, and his name trending everywhere again. His boredom tingled at the promise of fresh chaos and attention. He smiled slowly, feeling the room leaning toward him for his answer. "Deal," he said, extending his hand toward Miles. Glasses were lifted in a chorus of cheers and nervous laughter. They drafted the terms on a napkin first, then moved to paper. Lawyers would clean it up later, but the spirit was already locked in. Liam had to marry a woman with no money, no status, no connections. She had to be visibly poor, someone society ignored or mocked. He had to live with her, appear publicly with her, and honor the vow legally. If he backed out, he owed a massive sum personally to each man at the table. If he followed through, they'd fund an entire wing of a children's hospital. The twisted mix of charity and cruelty made the bet feel almost justified. 2 nights later, Liam instructed his driver to take him downtown alone. Snow drifted lazily over the streets, turning gutters into slushy rivers. He watched people huddle under bus stops, collars up, hands stuffed in pockets. He wasn't looking for beauty or charm tonight, only someone who fit the dare. At an alley beside an old convenience store, he saw her for the first time. A young woman sat on a piece of cardboard, wrapped in a worn gray blanket. Her hair was messy, her clothes oversized, and her boots scuffed and torn. A small cardboard sign rested near her feet, asking quietly for spare change. Liam stepped out of the car, the cold biting instantly through his coat. His polished shoes crunched on gritty ice as he walked toward her. The woman looked up, her eyes sharp despite the tiredness in her face. Up close, she was not ugly at all, just pale, worn, and guarded. There was a delicate structure in her features, buried under hardship. "What's your name?" Liam asked, his voice casual but curious. She narrowed her eyes, instantly suspicious of a stranger dressed like him. "Why?" she replied. "You planning to buy it too?" Her sarcasm surprised him, pulling a faint smirk from his lips. "Just trying to talk," he said. "I'm Liam." She studied him for another beat, as if weighing invisible scales. "Riley," she answered finally, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. "Now you know my name. Still want to stand in the cold?" she asked. Liam ignored the sting in her tone and crouched slightly to meet her eyes. "What if I told you I could change your life tonight?" he said. Riley snorted softly. "People say that when they're about to ruin it." He glanced back at the car, then down at her again. "I'm serious," Liam insisted. "What if I offered you food, a warm bed, and a legal marriage?" The word hung absurdly between them, visible in the frosty air. Riley's face hardened instantly, her eyes turning to stone. "That's not funny," she said. "Go find your entertainment somewhere else." Liam raised both hands, pretending innocence he didn't quite feel. "It's not a joke," he said. "It's a deal. For both of us." In that moment, the line between his game and her reality began to blur. Riley stood abruptly, the blanket sliding from her shoulders onto the wet pavement. "People like you think you can say anything and call it a joke," she snapped. "I don't know what kind of thrill you get bothering someone who's down," she continued. "But I've already had enough of that in my life." She moved to step past him, but Liam gently raised a hand, not touching her. "Wait," he said, urgency slipping into his voice for the first time. "I told you I'm serious. This isn't about mocking you." Riley laughed bitterly. "Yeah, rich men always say that." Liam inhaled slowly, choosing his words more carefully this time. "I'll put you up in an apartment tonight. New clothes, food, medical checkups. Everything paid for, no strings except one." She crossed her arms, jaw clenched. "There's always a string." "The string is a legal marriage for 6 months," he admitted. "No physical expectations. No pretending we're in love. Just public appearances when required. And at the end of 6 months, you walk away with full financial security." Riley stared at him as if he'd finally revealed how unhinged he truly was. "Why me?" she demanded. Liam hesitated, the uglier truth sitting heavy on his tongue. "Because," he said slowly, then stopped himself. He chose a half-lie instead. "Because you deserve a break," he finished quietly. Silence stretched between them, broken only by muffled traffic sounds. Riley shook her head. "I don't believe anything that easy." Liam reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope of cash. He held it out without stepping closer. "Take this even if you say no," he said. "Buy food, or a room, or whatever helps you get through the week." Her shoulders sagged slightly as she looked at the money, then at his face. Slowly, she accepted it, as if afraid he might change his mind. "Money doesn't come with trust," she murmured. "No," Liam agreed softly. "But sometimes it starts with survival." They stood there in the falling snow, two people from opposite worlds. Riley studied him as though trying to diagnose his motive. Finally she spoke. "You really want to marry a stranger from the street?" "Yes," he answered without hesitation. "Not because it's right," she said, voice trembling. "No," he replied. "Because I made a promise and I don't back out." Her lips pressed tight. I'd never humiliate myself like that for money. The words wounded Liam more than he expected. I wouldn't humiliate you, he said sharply. I would. Riley's gaze locked onto his. Everyone else would see me as some joke, your charity case bride. She hugged herself against the cold. Liam realized then how blind his original thinking had been. He imagined himself as the one in control, the one risking reputation. But the true cost would fall almost completely on her shoulders. The realization stirred discomfort he wasn't used to examining. Then let's change the terms, he said suddenly. No public ridicule. No talk shows or interviews. Discreet marriage. We live quietly. Appear only when legally necessary. She blinked, unprepared for compromise. Why would you rewrite the rules? Because if this turns ugly, it stops being a dare and becomes cruelty. The word cruelty tasted wrong even to his own ears. Riley hesitated, torn between desperation and dignity. 6 months, and I'm free, she asked softly. Free with enough money to rebuild your life, he replied. Education, housing, a clean start. No strings afterward. She looked down at the slush near their feet. My dignity already disappeared a long time ago, she whispered. But I don't want my soul to vanish with it. Liam swallowed hard. Your soul stays yours, he promised, realizing only now how sincere he sounded. You can walk away any day if it feels wrong. And you keep the money regardless. That last part stunned her. He saw fear give way to cautious calculation. What's really in this for you, she asked. A bet, he answered at last, choosing honesty. Her expression tightened. So I'm entertainment, she said flatly. At first, he didn't deny. But I'm hoping this becomes something else. Like what? She challenged. Like understanding what kind of man I don't want to be anymore. His voice surprised even him. Riley studied him for a long, careful moment. She wasn't buying the redemption angle, but she wasn't dismissing it either. After a long silence, she sighed. You people always get what you want eventually. She looked up. If I do this, I do it on my terms too. Liam nodded. Name them. No touching without permission. No using my story for fame or sympathy. And I decide where we live. Each condition struck a crack in his assumption of control. Agreed, he said without resistance. Her eyes widened slightly at how easily he accepted. And I want legal review, she added firmly. Of course, he replied. And if at any point I say stop, everything stops. Liam gave a single nod. We're partners in this, he said. The word landed heavier than he expected. They went to a law office the next morning. Riley was bathed, groomed, and dressed in simple new clothing provided by Liam's team. She looked almost unrecognizable compared to the woman on the sidewalk. Yet her eyes remained guarded, her posture still shaped by hardship. The lawyers handled papers with confusion barely hidden behind professionalism. Non-disclosure clauses, exit agreements, financial protections all filled pages. Riley read everything personally, line by line. She refused to be rushed. By afternoon, the marriage license was secured. The ceremony took place at a small civic building. No cameras, no crowds, no social circle witnesses. Only a clerk, 2 staff witnesses, and the couple themselves. Liam stood stiffly in his tailored suit, playing a role he barely understood. Riley wore a borrowed dress from a charity closet, clean but plainly simple. When the vows were spoken, her voice didn't shake. Liam's did. When it was done, they stood awkwardly outside the building. No kiss followed, only a strange quiet space between them. Well, Riley said slowly. I guess I'm your wife now. Liam nodded, looking at the ring on her finger, the only luxury item he insisted on. For 6 months, he said. Let's survive them without destroying each other, she replied. Her blunt honesty cut deeper than literal vows. As they stepped into his waiting car, neither fully understood the path ahead. The game had officially turned into real life. The penthouse elevator rose in near silence, broken only by the soft hum of machinery. Riley stood with her arms crossed, shoulders squared like invisible armor. The mirrored walls reflected a version of herself she barely recognized. Clean coat, brushed hair, simple boots that didn't leak water anymore. Yet inside, she still felt like the woman from the sidewalk. Liam watched her discreetly, sensing how overwhelming the environment must feel. The doors opened onto a vast space of glass, marble, and city views. Riley stopped in her tracks, stunned silent by the scale of it all. "This is where you live?" she asked quietly. "For now," Liam replied, uncertain why the answer sounded insufficient. She stepped forward slowly, afraid to touch anything. The apartment felt sterile, more like a showroom than a home. No photos, no personal clutter, no warmth in its polished perfection. Riley exhaled a thin breath. "Does anyone actually live here?" Liam almost answered himself instead of her. He realized he wasn't sure that he did. A staff member offered refreshments, but Riley declined. She remained standing until Liam gestured toward the sofa. Her movements were cautious, as if furniture might vanish under her weight. They sat across from each other, the space between them awkward and wide. "So," she began, "rules." "Your rules still stand," Liam said immediately. "No touching. Privacy. Mutual consent on public appearances. And honesty when it matters," Riley added, eyes steady. They agreed to separate bedrooms without question. Servants were instructed to treat Riley as Madam Hart, full authority granted. Her discomfort remained visible as staff bowed their heads politely. Later, alone in her room, she locked the door and leaned against it. The silence pressed in louder than any alley ever had. She sat on the bed and cried quietly, not from fear but from shock. Her entire world had pivoted in less than 48 hours. And she didn't know whether she had escaped ruin or walked straight into it. The next morning came with a rigid schedule. Stylists arrived uninvited, planners buzzing about appearance standards. Riley shut the door on all of them. "I didn't agree to become a doll," she snapped over the phone. Liam intervened, canceling half the preparations immediately. "She's not a product," he said sharply to his staff. Riley overheard his voice and felt a ripple of surprise. It sounded less arrogant than she expected, almost protective. Over breakfast, tension hung between them. She ate slowly, unused to food arriving without asking for money. "You don't have to impress anyone," Liam said quietly. "I'm not," she replied. "I'm just not used to eating without guilt." He frowned deeply at her words. For the first time, his senses shifted from curiosity to regret. Regret that his entertainment was built on someone else's pain. Their first public appearance came days later at a charity gala. Riley protested until Liam suggested not attending at all. She then surprised herself by insisting they go. "If I hide, the story tells itself," she said. "I'd rather walk in openly than let rumors write my truth." She wore a modest tailored dress, elegant but unpretentious. When they entered, conversations visibly paused around the room. Every eye traced the unlikely couple side by side. Whispers followed them across the marble floor. "A beggar," one voice mocked too softly to quote. Riley held her posture high regardless. Liam noticed how tightly her fingers curled at her sides. He offered his arm and stopped, remembering her boundary. She paused, then surprised him by slipping her arm into his. "This is strategy, not intimacy," she said lowly. The warmth of her touch felt anything but distant to him. Throughout the evening, wealthy guests approached with fake smiles. They asked surface-level questions while obviously studying Riley. Her answers were brief but smart, revealing quiet intelligence. Daniel-like performances came naturally to her despite nerves. Liam found himself proud and puzzled by the emotion. He'd never respected anyone he'd dated this deeply before. Every condescending look toward Riley ignited a strange tension inside him. Protectiveness steadily overtook amusement. At one point a drunken guest joked loudly, "So how much did this one cost you?" The room stilled. Riley froze, then straightened. Before she could speak, Liam stepped forward. "She cost me my arrogance," he said coldly. Murmurs rippled outward like shockwaves. The guest slunk away embarrassed. Their ride home was silent. Riley stared out the window, swallowing the night's humiliation. Liam watched her reflection in the glass. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for all of this." She didn't answer immediately. "Sorry doesn't erase things," she said at last. "But it does mean maybe you're changing." Back in the penthouse, she stopped before heading to her room. "You defended me tonight," she said. "I didn't expect that." Liam met her gaze steadily. "I didn't expect to care," he replied honestly. A long silence hung between them. Finally Riley nodded. "Thank you." The simplicity of gratitude lingered like something fragile and new. Weeks passed, and routine softened the distance. They shared breakfasts, quiet city walks, movie nights with clear boundaries. Riley began online classes using money Liam insisted be separate from the bet. She worked with charities helping displaced women, finding comfort in purpose. Liam watched her rediscover confidence that had long been buried. He admired her resilience more than her emerging elegance. His friends noticed the shift in him without understanding its cause. The once reckless heir now skipped parties for dinner at home. His circle mocked him quietly. They claimed the experience must be temporary theater. Liam ignored them. He had begun pushing back on the bet's cruelty. He quietly accelerated the hospital donation ahead of schedule. He refused interviews that framed the marriage as performance. The more Riley flourished, the more Liam felt ashamed of Origin's story. The joke had stopped being funny altogether. One evening Riley found paperwork accidentally left in the office. She recognized lawyer stamps and overheard a familiar name, Miles. The bet's full details lay open on the desk. Clause lists. Penalties. Signatures. Her stomach twisted as she read the truth. The marriage wasn't just a dare, it was a spectacle contract. She had been selected as the shock factor. Not chance, but intention had brought Liam to her curb. That night, she confronted him. "You didn't just help me," she said, voice shaking. "You hunted me." Liam's face drained of color. "There's no excuse," he said immediately. "I was selfish and cruel." "You turned my suffering into a social experiment," she snapped. Tears burned her eyes she refused to let fall. "I didn't know what I was doing back then," he said. "That doesn't matter now," Riley replied fiercely. "All that matters is what you did." Silence followed like a breach opening between them. She turned to walk away. "For what it's worth," he added quietly, "I hate the man who signed those papers." Riley did not look back as she disappeared into her room. Riley didn't come out of her room the next morning. Breakfast sat untouched on the dining table, growing cold beside the window. Liam lingered nearby longer than necessary, uncertain how to bridge the divide he had created. The penthouse felt heavier than usual, filled with words unsaid and regret thick as fog. He replayed her accusation, "You hunted me," knowing there was no denying its truth. He realized that apology alone could never erase the harm his choices had caused. This wasn't about saving the deal or protecting his image anymore. It was about facing who he had been and deciding who he wanted to become. That afternoon, Liam took a step he had never taken with anyone before. He voluntarily invited the Foundation's ethics board to review the entire bet contract. Within hours, legal counsel advised him the agreement was humiliating at best and exploitative at worst. Liam authorized its immediate nullification and full payment of the pledged charity funds. He instructed the lawyers to amend Riley's financial security so it became unconditional. No 6-month timeline. No obligations. No public appearances required. Freedom, in every sense of the word. He accepted penalties without complaint. That evening, he stood outside Riley's bedroom door, hesitant. "I ended the bet," he called softly through the wood. "There's no contract anymore. No conditions." She remained silent. "I transferred the money to your personal account," he continued. "You're free to leave whenever you want." He waited, heart pounding, wondering if he'd already lost whatever fragile bridge remained. Minutes passed before the door slowly opened. Riley stood pale and exhausted, arms crossed tightly to her chest. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "Because the truth didn't just hurt you," Liam answered. "It finally forced me to look at myself." She studied his face, searching for manipulation or performance. All she saw was genuine remorse. That didn't heal trust, but it softened the rage burning inside her. "Ending it doesn't undo the humiliation," she said evenly. "I know," Liam replied. "But I want to repair what I can." "You owe me nothing, no forgiveness, no staying, nothing at all." Riley hesitated, the hallway light casting gentle shadows over her tired eyes. "For the first time since we met," she said. "You're speaking without trying to win something." She stepped back into the room. "Come in." They sat across from each other on the edge of the bed. No contracts, no power dynamics, just two flawed people facing consequences. Liam confessed everything, his emptiness, recklessness, the joke that spiraled into cruelty. He admitted how being around Riley had dismantled the hollow arrogance he lived with. "Watching you rebuild yourself showed me how ugly my life was," he said quietly. "I don't want to be that man anymore." Riley listened, anger slowly giving way to cautious reflection. Pain didn't vanish, but clarity began to grow. "I won't pretend what you did was forgivable," she said. "But I see your change isn't fake." She looked out the window at the glowing skyline. "Before you came along, I didn't believe people could change at all." She turned back to him. "Now I think maybe they can, if the truth breaks them hard enough." Liam nodded, humbled by the honesty rather than relieved by it. Over the next weeks, they began again on entirely new terms. No marriage obligation. No forced proximity. Only the choice to spend time together when both wanted to. Liam insisted Riley retain use of the penthouse until she found her own home. She began apartment hunting near her volunteer center and classes. Liam drove her to viewings without comment, never pressing or pleading. Slow respect replaced guilt. Their conversations became deeper, less guarded. They spoke about trauma, shame, responsibility, and redemption. Liam began attending therapy sessions he avoided for years. Riley supported without absolving, maintaining necessary emotional boundaries. A friendship began to grow where a contract once stood. And surprisingly, affection grew beside it, not fueled by obligation, but by choice. The line between them softened naturally over time. One evening at a shelter fundraiser, Riley gave a brief speech. She thanked volunteers and donors and spoke obliquely about dignity and unseen worth. Her voice did not break as she recounted being judged without being known. Liam listened from the back of the room, chest tight with pride and regret. He realized her strength came not from what he gave, but what she claimed for herself. Afterward, he congratulated her quietly without grand gestures. She smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. Later that night, walking home together beneath glimmering streetlights, Riley paused beneath a snow-dusted tree. "You did something real today," she said. "What?" he asked, unsure. "You listened and supported without trying to repair your own guilt," she replied. "That's what trust begins with." The words filled him with cautious hope he didn't dare exaggerate. Time continued forward, gentler now. Riley moved into a small but bright apartment near the river. She invited Liam over the first night, not as husband, not as obligation, but as friend. They cooked a simple meal together and laughed at their clumsy teamwork. No luxury, no spectacle, just quiet warmth. The simplicity meant more to Liam than any gala or boardroom triumph ever had. At the door when he prepared to leave. Riley touched his sleeve lightly. "I still carry scars from how all this began," she said softly. "But you didn't add to them, you tried to heal them." Liam swallowed, afraid to read more into the moment. "I'm grateful you didn't give up on me entirely," he replied. She met his gaze steadily. "Redemption doesn't come from being forgiven," Riley said quietly. "It comes from choosing to be better every day, whether anyone applauds or not." She released his sleeve and stepped back into her apartment. Liam walked away into the night feeling lighter and yet more accountable than ever. For the first time, his life didn't feel like something he needed to prove. It felt like something he needed to earn. Months passed quietly, and the city shifted through seasons while Liam and Riley continued rebuilding their lives from different sides of the same shared story. They no longer lived together, and their relationship no longer carried any labels forced upon it. What remained was genuine closeness grounded in mutual respect rather than obligation. They met for coffee, attended volunteer events, shared long walks by the river that flowed near Riley's apartment. Each conversation felt lighter yet more meaningful than those they'd shared under the weight of contracts and secrets. Liam listened more than he talked now, absorbing Riley's perspective with a humility he had never practiced before. Riley noticed the change steadily taking root, though she remained careful not to romanticize transformation too quickly. Trust, she'd learned, grew piece by piece, never in leaps. One afternoon, Liam received a call from Miles, the friend who had originated the cruel bet. The man sounded irritated and incredulous. "You ruined the joke," Miles scoffed. "Donated the entire fund, cancelled the deal, and made yourself look ridiculous." Liam listened without interruption. "At least I stopped being ridiculous for the right reasons," he answered flatly. "Don't call me again." He hung up without regret, feeling an unexpected finality in cutting loose that old part of his life. Later that day, he met Riley at the community center where she now coordinated outreach programs full-time. Children ran past laughing as volunteers packed winter clothing kits into boxes behind them. Watching Riley command the room confidently filled him with pride not tangled with ego anymore. She was no longer the woman from the sidewalk or even the reluctant bride of a bizarre contract. She stood as a leader, mentor, and advocate. The strength in her smile told Liam she had claimed her worth independently of him. That realization made everything feel truly right. On a crisp evening, Riley invited Liam to dinner at her apartment. She cooked a simple homemade meal, admitting she wanted to thank him for supporting the center's education grant program. They ate by candlelight, not for romance, but because her overhead bulb had blown again. Laughter filled the small room, the comfort between them natural and unforced. When the dishes were done, they sat on the couch, quiet settling easily around them. "This life is oddly normal," Riley mused. "And unbelievably precious," Liam replied softly. She turned toward him, studying his expression carefully. "Do you regret coming up to me that night?" she asked. The question was heavy with layered meaning. Liam inhaled before answering. "I regret the cruelty that led me there," he said honestly. "But meeting you, no, I don't regret that at all." Riley nodded slowly. "That answer matters." A gentle silence followed. The tension was no longer painful or awkward, it was soulful, expectant. Riley's hand moved almost unknowingly to rest on his. Neither pulled away. There was no rush, no thrill of scandal, only sincerity. "Do you think something good can still grow out of something wrong?" she asked. Liam met her gaze. "Yes," he said. "When responsibility feeds it instead of guilt." Their first real kiss happened then, not forced, not impulsive, not tied to any obligation. It was soft, tentative, and deeply validating. Two equal people choosing something new rather than repairing something broken. Riley felt no fear this time, no pressure to perform gratitude or survival. Liam felt no desire to impress, only to be present. It was the beginning of something authentic, rooted in truth rather than transaction. They both understood it without words. Their relationship blossomed quietly over the following year. They moved deliberately, blending romance with friendship and maintaining the honesty that saved them both. Public gossip eventually faded as more dramatic celebrity stories replaced their unusual narrative. Only the charities and people helped by Liam's redirected funding continued to echo the ripple of what started as a cruel dare. Neither Liam nor Riley sought attention for it. They let the results speak through lives improved, homes rebuilt, and programs expanded. One snowy anniversary of the night they first met arrived once more. They stood together at the same curb downtown, now cleared and bordered with safety ramps installed by the city in partnership with Riley's initiatives. Cars slowed responsibly, and bright streetlights illuminated widened sidewalks. Riley smiled softly. "This was the worst day of my life," she said gently. "And somehow it became the doorway to the best one." Liam squeezed her hand gratefully. "And to the life I didn't deserve until I changed for it." They shared a quiet laugh. No bitterness remained between them, only perspective. They walked away together through falling snow, not as a billionaire and a former beggar, not as a dare's aftermath, but as two souls who had grown by confronting the hardest truths of their own story. For the world, their tale had begun with cruelty and shock. But for them, it ended, and truly began, with courageous love built from accountability. What once seemed like punishment had transformed into redemption. And the silence that followed their improbable marriage no longer screamed with scandal or shame. It whispered a timeless truth instead. Kindness, even when crushed by cruelty, still has the power to rebuild lives, including the ones that first tried to destroy it.